Can the Ryzen 5 7600X handle the RX 7900 GRE graphics card? Let's find out by testing this combo in a variety of games at 1440p. Here's what the complete PC build looks like. And if you're interested in any of the products featured in this video, then you can find them at the links in the description below, which will take you to your local Amazon store. Let's start with an ordinary AAA game that came out recently, Ghost of Tsushima, that is not particularly GPU demanding, nor is it CPU demanding. Later in the video we'll test a competitive game using competitive settings, a CPU demanding game, and a GPU demanding game. That will allow us to check if the CPU-GPU combo has any weaknesses. Do you need a new Windows license key like I do right here with my new PC build? Then I have a great solution for you. Over the last 3 years, I've saved a lot of money by buying my Windows keys from cdkeyoffer.com. Allow me to demonstrate. I will be going for Windows 11 Pro. So just click on Buy Now. Then use my discount code IREDEEM. Hit Apply. And that brings the price down to $22. After that, you just submit the order and select the payment method you wish to use. I will be going with the safe and fast PayPal payment, so you just press Pay Now. Once you're done with your payment, you will be redirected back to CDK Offer, and that's your order complete. Now you can go to User Center. Actually, it will redirect you there, where you can just grab your key by pressing View Key Code, Get Key, and then copy it. Then you can use your search bar to quickly bring up activation settings, change key, insert that key, hit next, activate, wait a few seconds, and there you go. Now you have your Windows activated and ready to use for a fraction of the cost that you would normally pay. Get yours now at the link in the description below. And by the way, you may have noticed that they also have other Microsoft software, including Office 2019 and Office 2016. Don't forget to use my discount code if you want to grab any of those. We're at 1440p, no upscaling, no frame generation for now, but we'll take a look at those features later, and we're using very high graphics preset. Field of view is increased to the maximum. In the area with a lot of NPCs, the CPU usage stays at around 50%. In this game, this GPU-CPU combo works very well. The GPU stays fully loaded all of the time, with little dips here and there, but that is just within margin of error. Nothing disturbing, really. And check this out. The GPU uses almost 10 gigabytes of memory, and between 280 and 300 watts of power. The performance is beautiful, above 90 FPS in this area. This is quite a graphically demanding scene, so there will be other areas of the game where you'll see above 100 FPS, like the one over here in the forest. Just barely above 100. Let's see what happens if we use an upscaler to boost the FPS. Let's use AMD FSR 3 set to quality mode. And in this area, where we had 90 plus FPS, now we have 110 plus FPS, and the GPU load is at around 90%. So we're leaving a little bit of performance on the table because of the CPU, but not too much, because we're still getting very high FPS, and in some scenes like this one here, we're still getting like 95–96% GPU utilization. If you want to boost your FPS even higher, you'll have to use frame generation. So let's have a look at what that experience will be like. And with frame generation enabled, we're getting above 180 FPS. Yes, very nice. And the GPU load stays at around 90 plus, so 90 to 97%. That graph doesn't look very nice, simply because I'm on a 165 Hz monitor. To make that performance smooth, you can lock your FPS to whatever hertz your monitor is. Mine is 165. So that's what I'm going to do. Lock it at 165. And check this out. The FPS is now smooth. Frame time is absolutely glorious. The experience is nice and fluid. I wonder, do we need the upscaler to keep that FPS at 165 if we are using AMD's frame generation? Let's see. Let's turn the upscaling off. Yes, it does appear so. We need the upscaler if we want that 165 Hz experience. However, if you want a nice 120 FPS experience, let's lock the FPS at 120 now, you can just do it without AMD's upscaling. Just use frame generation at native resolution, and you'll get 120 FPS in Ghost of Tsushima. Very nice. I've just reset the FPS counter so that you can see that 1% lows and 0.2% lows are absolutely fine. Next up is a CPU demanding game. This is Cyberpunk 2077, and the settings that I'm using to make it CPU demanding is crowd density set to the absolute maximum. Other settings are set to high preset. No FSR, no frame generation. And we are still at 1440p resolution. Let's take a look at the performance. As you can see, the CPU is now very close to being fully loaded, close to 90%. That is because there's a lot of NPCs in the area that the CPU has to help calculate. Yeah, and basically that is why the GPU load is only at around 70%, because that CPU cannot handle all these NPCs. And this is the scenario where we see limitations of the Ryzen 5 CPU. But other than that, the performance is fine. It is quite smooth, no problems, no stuttering. This is a pretty good experience. However, I would definitely recommend readjusting those graphics settings and effects to make this experience much more pleasant, because take a look at this. In this area right here, we are dropping below 50 FPS. That is not nice. So let's try and do something about it. Let's set the graphics preset to Ultra, disable AMD's upscaling, and let's set crowd density to medium. And here's the result. We have actually increased graphics quality from high to ultra, but we've just adjusted one setting, which is crowd density, that lowered the number of NPCs in the area, and now we're getting well above 60 FPS. That is 80 plus, 70 plus. So that's a huge difference, and our GPU load stays well above 80, sometimes above 90%. And even in this area, where we've previously seen below 50 FPS, it is absolutely fine. We're staying well above 60. So if you lock your FPS at 60, you are going to have a good time at 1440p native resolution on Ultra Graphics preset. All it takes is lowering one setting that is not even graphics. It's a CPU setting, crowd density. So making sure that there's fewer NPCs actually makes your gaming experience more pleasant. And there's still a lot of NPCs in the area, check this out. So you don't really need the crowd density on high to feel like this city is hustling and bustling. There's still a lot of NPCs around on medium crowd density. And just to check, I'm going to lock the FPS at 60 now. Let's see if the performance will be nice and smooth. And yes, frame rate is now absolutely flat, and frame time is flat as well. That's what we want to see. And the experience is very smooth. This is how I would play this game. Lock the FPS at 60 and enjoy it like so. Next up is a competitive game. This is Counter-Strike 2, And we are using 1440p resolution, medium graphics preset with only one thing changed, that is FSR. I've turned it off. We are in the match, and the CPU utilization is above 70%. Yeah, close to 80 most of the time, and the FPS stays well above 200. So not quite 240 consistently, but it is up there. It is pretty nice. The GPU load stays above 60, sometimes above 70%, but sometimes it does drop to around 50-ish. So it is not quite ideal, but it is still quite good. If you're playing on a 165 Hz monitor, like I am right now, it will be absolutely fine. However, if you are playing on a 240 Hz monitor and you want that competitive edge, then you do need a faster CPU, because the Ryzen 5 7600X, it just can't compete with something like 7800X 3D. But if you are not too competitive, then it shouldn't be a problem. This is still a brilliant experience. Very nice. Hellblade 2 is one of the most graphically demanding games. It utilizes pretty much everything the Unreal Engine 5 has to offer. Nanite, Lumen technologies, so there is ray tracing in this game. And I'm currently using the highest graphics preset at 1440p native, so no upscaling. And the CPU and the GPU are doing very well. The CPU is at around 60+%, and the GPU is fully loaded, and we're getting 50+ FPS in some of the most demanding scenes. And in less demanding scenes, we're easily getting 60+ FPS. I've seen even 70+ just then, as I was passing through that alley there, in a closed area, but in a more open area with a lot more assets to render, you are still getting a very pleasant 50+ FPS experience. And we can always lower the graphics quality to improve the FPS. Let's try medium preset. By the way, medium preset in this game looks absolutely gorgeous, better than very high-end ultra presets in most games I've seen. And check this out, just like that, we're now in the same scene where we've had 50+ FPS, we're now experiencing 70+ FPS. And the GPU is still nearly fully loaded, 98%, and the CPU is now working a little bit harder, it's at 70+% now. Another way you might want to experience this game is by using AMD's upscaling set to quality, and just set that graphics preset back to high, which is the absolute maximum, and you'll still get that 70+ FPS experience, so you can lock your game at 60 and enjoy it that way. However, even though after one patch AMD's FSR looks better, still, one of the things I must point out is that AMD's upscaling technology is far from perfect, and yeah, just notice how there's a lot of artifacts happening on the edge of the character, around the character, when you move the camera around. It is just not nice. These kind of things rarely happen with DLSS, and in this particular game, even Intel's XeSS does a better job. Because with XeSS, even though there is still something there on the edges, it is much less noticeable. So if you're buying an AMD graphics card, you need to be aware of these things, that FSR is far from ideal, DLSS is just better to this day. In conclusion, I think this is a great CPU-GPU combo if you are a casual gamer who plays just regular games like Ghost of Tsushima, Hellblade 2. However, as you've seen, this combo has some limitations when it comes to competitive games and CPU-demanding games. For example, in Counter-Strike 2, you will definitely need a much more powerful CPU to keep that FPS at above 240 all the time if you have a 240Hz monitor. And in CPU-demanding games, such as Cyberpunk 2077, you will have to adjust some of the CPU-demanding settings to make the Ryzen 5 CPU work well. I think a lot of you will be happy to make those little compromises if it means that you can save about $150 by not going for something like a Ryzen 7 7800X 3D CPU, if that means that you can use that $150 to buy a much more powerful graphics card that will allow you to better enjoy the latest AAA games that are firstly and foremostly GPU demanding, not CPU demanding. If you're interested in any of the products featured in this video, then you can find Amazon links to them in the description below. What do you think about this combination? Do you like it? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it and if it was helpful. Subscribe for more if you haven't already. It was I, Vadim. Until next time.